You might get another typical task of mapping data with promises. As you can see here, we have such feature. You have two functions which return promises. Map data from users and user statuses to get array of users with ID, name, and is active. And as you can see here, we have one array users with ID and name, and we have a second array user statuses with ID and is active properties. And actually this ID is exactly the same like ID here, and this is exactly the data that we need to map. So we need to get an array with ID, name, and is active. But the main point is that these data are not available for us. They are only available here inside getUsers and getUserStatuses. So we have two functions which are promises, and typically you will fetch this data from the API. This is why here getUsers will return for us a promise. This is why we're resolving array of our users here, and here is the same with user statuses, which actually means we have two promises, we must resolve them and combine. And there are different ways how we can solve this task. The most beginner approach here is to fetch first promise and then the next one. Let's try this now. So we can write here getUsers, and this gives us back a promise. This is why here we can write then, and we're getting our users back. Now after this we want to fetch our getUserStatuses. So here we're calling getUserStatuses, and we also use then here, and we're getting back our user statuses. And now inside this function we have access to user statuses and users, because here we will get only after resolving both of them, but not in parallel, but one by one. And what we can do here, we can map users. So we can create, for example, mapped users, and we need to loop through our users with map. We have access to every single user, and now we need to find this isActive property, because this is exactly what we want to put in our array. This is why here we can write const isActive, and here we want to find inside user statuses our status. This is why here we're writing find user status, and here we need to check user status.id equals our user.id. But this will return for us user status, and we must write at the end isActive. In this case we will get only this specific property. Now after we got our isActive, we want to put it inside every single object. But we won't use here push, because you remember push is bad. This is why we will simply return here new object, and we're spreading here all fields of our user plus isActive property. In this case we are putting isActive property in every single user. And after this we can just console log our mapped users here, and they are available for us inside our application. Let's check this out. I'm reloading the page and we're getting our mapped user. And as you can see, this is an array with three objects, ID, name, and isActive, which actually means we successfully solved this task. But there are quite a lot of problems in this code. First of all, we have two different promises, and they are not dependent on each other, which means it doesn't make any sense to wait for first promise and only then make a second promise. We actually must do them in parallel, in other case it is too slow. So I want to write here that this is solution 1, and I want to comment our first solution. Now let's try the second solution. And for the second solution we can use promise all. If you don't know what is promise all, this is exactly what is helping us to do several promises in parallel. We can write here promise.all, and we must pass array of promises inside. So here we have an array, and we can write here get users, and then comma get user statuses. In this case we are throwing inside promise all array with our two promises, and after promise all at the end we can just write then, and here we will get our result as an array. But it's not very comfortable to work with array here. This is why we can directly destructure here our array to our two properties, and here we are getting our users, and here we are getting our user statuses. And after this we can do our logic, which we did here with mapped user. This is why I will copy this code with mapped users and just put it inside here, because it will stay exactly the same. So here we have access to our user and our user statuses, and we're mapping them and console logging it here. Let's check this out. I'm reloading the page and we're getting exactly the same response back. The main point is here we used promise all, and this is much better because in this case we're making these two requests in parallel. Also, as you can see in solution 2, we don't have this bad nesting with then, and here we have just a single then. And this is obviously better because we want to avoid this deeply nested code. But we can make this code even better. As you can see, we have this mapped users, and we actually can move this code outside of our then just to make it more readable. So here we can create additional function before, for example, map users, and we know that we are getting here our users and user statuses. And actually this is completely pure function which will just map our users. So I can cut this code and put it here inside. And here we don't need our const, we can directly return our map. And actually this code will be exactly the same like we used it previously. And now what we can do here, we can just create mapped users, and here we are assigning map users, and we are passing inside our users and user statuses. And as you can see now, this code is even better to read, because here we have simply promise all, then we are mapping our users with additional function, and we are console logging them. Let's check this out. As you can see, we have exactly the same response. And actually we can improve this function even a little bit more. As you can see, we are mapping users inside our then, but actually we can chain our thens, which actually means here maybe we want directly to return our mapped users, so our first then will just map the users and return them here, and after this we can write one more then, and here we will have our mapped users, and here we want to work with them. So here I will console log our mapped users. In this case, we split two different thens, mapping of the users and working with success. And actually here we simply console log our users, which means this is our success. And we can even remove return from here and write this as a single liner. In this case, it will be even more readable. So I would say that this code is as dry as possible. This is why if you want to show that you are an advanced developer, you must write your code and try to improve it as many times as possible.